The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the bustling Los Angeles street as Keanu Reeves pulled his motorcycle into a parking spot near First National Bank. He removed his helmet, ran a hand through his slightly disheveled hair, and checked his watch. Just past 4 o'clock, he still had time before the charity event started at 6. Keanu had promised to bring a substantial donation to the Children's Hospital fundraiser tonight. While he could have simply written a check, he knew that many of the kids and families preferred cash donations they could immediately put toward medical bills and living expenses. These were the small details that mattered to him, the human element beyond the paperwork. The bank's glass doors slid open with a soft whoosh as he stepped inside. The cool air was a welcome relief from the California heat. Keanu wore simple clothes, faded jeans, a well-worn black t-shirt, and a brown leather jacket despite the warm weather. Nothing about him screamed Hollywood star, and that's exactly how he preferred it. He took his place in line, nodding politely at an elderly woman who smiled at him. Though some people did double takes, most customers were too absorbed in their own banking needs to notice the famous actor waiting patiently among them. As the line inched forward, Keanu rehearsed the speech he would give at tonight's event. He wasn't one for grand speeches, but the kids at the hospital had specifically asked if he would say a few words. How could he refuse? These children showed more courage daily than most people demonstrated in a lifetime. Next customer, please. The voice pulled Keanu from his thoughts. He stepped up to the counter where a young teller with a name tag reading Thomas greeted him with a professional smile. Good afternoon, how can I help you today? Thomas asked, his eyes briefly flicking up before returning to his computer screen. Hi there, Keanu replied in his characteristically gentle tone. I'd like to make a withdrawal, please. He slid his bank card and ID across the counter. Thomas took the cards, his eyes widening slightly as he read the name. He looked up, studying Keanu's face more carefully, then back at the ID photo. Mr. Reeves? As in... Keanu smiled kindly. Yes, that's me. Wow, I'm a huge fan of your work, Thomas stammered, suddenly flustered. The Matrix was life-changing for me. And John Wick? Incredible. Thank you, that's very kind, Keanu replied, genuinely appreciative but mindful of the growing line behind him. About that withdrawal. Oh, yes, of course. Thomas composed himself and typed on his keyboard. His professional demeanor returned as he focused on the screen. Then his expression changed, eyebrows drawing together in confusion. I'm sorry, Mr. Reeves, but there seems to be an issue with your account. Keanu leaned in slightly. An issue? What kind of issue? Thomas tapped a few more keys, frowning. There's a security flag on your account. According to our system, any withdrawals need additional verification today. He looked apologetic. I'm really sorry about this. That's strange. I've been with this bank for years, Keanu said, keeping his voice calm and quiet. I made a deposit just last week without any problems. Thomas nodded. I see that in your history. But the system is showing a security protocol was activated yesterday. He lowered his voice. It might be because of the amount you're requesting. Sometimes large withdrawals trigger automatic security measures. Keanu sighed softly. He needed to withdraw enough cash for 30 families attending tonight's event. Each family would receive an envelope with enough to cover a week of hospital parking, meals, and other immediate expenses that insurance never covered. Is there something we can do to verify my identity? Keanu asked. I have this charity event in less than 2 hours. Thomas bit his lip. I'd need approval from my manager for an override, and she's currently in a meeting. There's also additional paperwork for security verification. It would take at least an hour to process everything. The woman waiting behind Keanu shifted impatiently, checking her watch. Others in line were beginning to notice the delay, and a few had recognized him, whispering and pointing discreetly. Would it help if I called my financial advisor? He might be able to clear this up, Keanu suggested. You could try, but our system requires direct verification through approved channels. Phone calls aren't typically accepted as verification. Thomas looked genuinely distressed. I wish I could help more, Mr. Reeves, I really do. Keanu nodded, understanding the young man was just following protocol. I appreciate you explaining things to me, Thomas. Is there anyone else who might be able to help while your manager is in her meeting? The assistant manager is out sick today, and the security team that handles these flags works remotely. Thomas glanced at his screen again. According to this, the flag was triggered by unusual activity yesterday, Keanu thought back. The only transaction he'd made recently was, would a large donation to Children's Hospital set off a security alert? I made a contribution yesterday. Thomas's eyes widened with realization. That's probably it. Large charitable donations sometimes trigger fraud alerts because they can be unusual compared to normal spending patterns. He looked at Keanu with newfound respect. That was very generous of you. Those kids deserve all the help they can get. Keanu replied simply. A tall man in a tailored suit approached the counter, drawn by the holdup in the line. Is everything all right here, Thomas? Mr. Reynolds! I thought you were in a meeting, Thomas said, clearly relieved. This is Mr. Keanu Reeves. There's a security flag on his account preventing a withdrawal. Reynolds's professional expression faltered for just a moment. Mr. Reeves, I'm David Reynolds, the bank manager. He extended his hand. I apologize for any inconvenience. Keanu shook the offered hand. Nice to meet you, Mr. Reynolds. I understand you're just doing your job. Reynolds leaned over to look at Thomas's screen. I see the issue. This is actually a new security measure we implemented last month for accounts with high-value transactions. He straightened, looking embarrassed. I can authorize an override, but it will take about 20 minutes to process. I appreciate that, Keanu said, checking his watch again. Time was getting tight, but making a scene wouldn't help. I understand security is important. If you'll follow me to my office, we can get this resolved right away, Reynolds offered, gesturing toward a hallway behind the teller counters. Thomas, please direct the next customer to Lisa's counter. As they walked away from the front counters, Keanu noticed several customers openly staring now, some taking out their phones. He kept his eyes forward, maintaining his privacy as best he could. Reynolds' office was modest but well organized. Awards for community service and customer satisfaction adorned one wall. He gestured for Keanu to take a seat while he settled behind his desk. Again, I'm terribly sorry about this. Mr. Reeves, our system flagged your account because of the pattern. A large donation followed by a large cash withdrawal. It's designed to protect against fraud, but sometimes it's a bit overzealous. Keanu nodded. I'm glad to know my money is being protected. No need to apologize. Reynolds typed rapidly on his computer. May I ask about the withdrawal today? It's an unusual amount for cash. It's for a charity event tonight at Children's Hospital. Many of the families there prefer cash for immediate expenses. Hospital parking, meals while staying with their kids, that sort of thing. Keanu's voice softened. Some of them are facing financial difficulties because of the medical bills. Reynolds' fingers paused over the keyboard. That's incredibly thoughtful. He seemed genuinely moved. My nephew was treated there last year for leukemia. The expenses beyond medical bills can be overwhelming for families. How is your nephew doing now? Keanu asked with genuine interest. He's in remission, thankfully. Reynolds smiled, the professional veneer dropping momentarily. The staff there worked miracles. I'm glad to hear that, Keanu said warmly. Reynolds finished typing and clicked his mouse decisively. I've overridden the security flag. We can process your withdrawal immediately. He picked up his desk phone. I'll have Thomas prepare everything while we complete the paperwork. As Reynolds arranged for the withdrawal, Keanu noticed a framed photo on the desk. Reynolds with a young boy wearing a hospital gown, both smiling despite the circumstances. The human connections behind banking policies suddenly became very clear. 5 minutes later, Thomas knocked on the office door with an envelope. His earlier nervousness had been replaced with professional efficiency, though he couldn't help glancing at Keanu with barely contained excitement. Everything's ready, Mr. Reeves, Thomas said, handing the envelope to Reynolds, who verified the contents before passing it to Keanu. Thank you both for your help, Keanu said, tucking the envelope securely inside his jacket. It's the least we could do after the inconvenience, Reynolds replied, standing to shake Keanu's hand again. And thank you for what you're doing for those families. As they walked back to the main lobby, Reynolds added quietly, if you don't mind my asking, how did you get involved with the Children's Hospital? Keanu's expression softened. I visited once for a standard celebrity appearance years ago, but after spending time with the kids there, how could I not stay involved? They face unimaginable challenges with such courage. Reynolds nodded in understanding as they reached the lobby. Several customers were still waiting, some clearly having stayed longer than necessary in hopes of spotting Keanu. Mr. Reynolds, Keanu said suddenly as an idea formed, I have a suggestion that might benefit everyone. The bank manager raised his eyebrows expectantly, not realizing that what had begun as a routine banking error was about to transform into something much more significant. Reynolds stood attentively in the bank lobby, curious about what Keanu had in mind. The afternoon light streamed through the large windows, casting a golden glow across the marble floor. Several customers pretended to check their banking apps while stealing glances at the famous actor. Instead of rushing off, Keanu said quietly, "Maybe we could talk about a potential partnership." He glanced at his watch. There was still time before the charity event, and this unexpected banking hiccup had sparked an idea. Reynolds blinked in surprise. "A partnership? I'd be happy to discuss that, of course." He gestured back toward his office, away from curious ears. As they walked, Keanu noticed Thomas watching them from behind his counter, trying not to look too interested. On impulse, Keanu turned to Reynolds. "Would it be possible for Thomas to join us? He seems genuinely concerned about what happened." Reynolds hesitated only briefly. "Of course. He's one of our most dedicated employees." He called Thomas over, who looked startled but quickly asked another teller to cover his station. Back in Reynolds' office, Thomas stood awkwardly until Keanu motioned for him to sit. The young teller perched on the edge of a chair, clearly not used to being included in meetings with the bank manager, let alone with a Hollywood star. "First," Keanu began, his voice carrying its characteristic gentle calmness, "I want to thank you both for resolving the issue so professionally. Thomas, you were right to follow security protocols." Thomas's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Reeves. I was worried I'd upset you." "Not at all," Keanu replied with a small smile. "Good security matters, especially when handling charitable funds." Reynolds leaned forward. "You mentioned a partnership?" Keanu nodded, gathering his thoughts. "I've been working with Children's Hospital for years. The care they provide is amazing, but families of sick children face many challenges beyond medical bills. Transportation, lodging, missed work, it adds up quickly." Reynolds nodded in understanding, glancing briefly at the photo of his nephew on his desk. "Today's withdrawal," Keanu continued, "is for 30 families, but there are hundreds more who need similar help." He leaned forward, his eyes reflecting genuine concern. "What if First National could become part of the solution?" "What did you have in mind?" Reynolds asked, his interest clearly piqued. "Initially, I just needed cash for tonight's event, but this situation made me think, what if we created something more sustainable?" Keanu's voice grew animated, his hands gesturing as he spoke. "A special banking program for families with children facing serious illnesses. Reduced fees, flexible credit options during treatment periods, maybe even financial counseling." Thomas, seemingly forgetting his nervousness, jumped in. "We could create emergency bridge loans for families waiting on insurance reimbursements, too." Reynolds glanced at the young teller with newfound respect. "That's actually a good point, Thomas." Keanu smiled, encouraged by the teller's enthusiasm. "Exactly the kind of thinking we need. These families are in crisis. They need flexible financial solutions that recognize their unique situation." Reynolds grabbed a notepad and began jotting down ideas. "This aligns perfectly with our community outreach goals. We've been looking for meaningful ways to make a difference locally. The hospital fundraiser tonight is just the beginning," Keanu said. "They're launching a new family support wing next month. Having a banking partner who understands these families' needs would be invaluable." Thomas cleared his throat. "My cousin had cancer when we were teenagers. The financial stress nearly broke their family, even with decent insurance. His parents almost lost their house while trying to keep up with everything." The room fell silent for a moment. Reynolds looked at Thomas with new understanding, as if seeing beyond the young bank teller for the first time. Keanu nodded solemnly. "That's unfortunately common. Medical bankruptcies affect thousands of families every year. That's why I started bringing cash to these events, for the immediate needs that can't wait for paperwork and approvals." Reynolds tapped his pen thoughtfully against his notepad. "We could establish a dedicated team trained specifically to work with these families. Fast-track approvals for certain situations. Create custom financial packages." He looked up at Keanu. "This could become a model program for our other branches nationwide." "That would be incredible," Keanu replied, genuine excitement in his voice. He turned to Thomas. "What do you think?" "You're on the front lines with customers every day." Thomas sat up straighter, clearly surprised to be asked his opinion. I think it's brilliant. And, he hesitated, then continued with growing confidence, we could create a secure digital payment option for hospital expenses too. Something that works like cash but with better security, so families don't have to worry about carrying large amounts of money during already stressful times. Reynolds wrote that down, nodding approvingly. Excellent suggestion. Keanu checked his watch. I should head to the hospital soon, but I'd like to stay in touch about this. Would you be open to meeting with the hospital's family services director next week? Absolutely, Reynolds replied without hesitation. He pulled out his business card and wrote his personal cell number on the back. Call me directly anytime. I'm fully committed to exploring this. Keanu accepted the card with a nod of thanks. Then he turned to Thomas. Would you be interested in being involved in developing this program? Your perspective would be valuable. Thomas looked stunned. Me? Yes, absolutely. If Mr. Reynolds approves, of course. Reynolds didn't hesitate. Consider it approved. In fact, Thomas, I'd like you to lead our team on this project. The young teller's face lit up with surprise and gratitude. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. As they all stood to conclude the impromptu meeting, Keanu reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small envelope. I almost forgot. These are passes for tonight's event at the hospital. If you're free, it would be great to have you both there. You could meet some of the families and see firsthand what we're trying to address. Reynolds accepted the passes with genuine appreciation. I'll definitely be there. My wife volunteers at the hospital regularly. She'll be thrilled. I'll come too, Thomas added eagerly. Thank you for the invitation. As they walked back through the bank lobby, the atmosphere had completely changed. What had started as an awkward banking error had transformed into the beginning of something meaningful. Customers still stared, but Keanu barely noticed, his mind already working through the possibilities of this unexpected partnership. At the front entrance, Reynolds extended his hand again. Mr. Reeves, thank you for turning what could have been a negative experience into an opportunity to help others. Not many people would have reacted that way. Keanu shook his hand firmly. Sometimes the best ideas come from unexpected places. And please call me Keanu. Thomas stepped forward next, his handshake more confident than before. Thank you for understanding about the security protocols. And for, well, everything else, Keanu smiled. Thank you for doing your job properly, Thomas. The right security measures protect everyone, including the families we want to help. He glanced between the two bankers. I'll see you both tonight at the hospital. They nodded in confirmation, and Keanu stepped out into the late afternoon sunlight. As he walked to his motorcycle, he felt a sense of satisfaction. The withdrawal problem had delayed him, but it had also opened a door to something potentially life-changing for many families. Sometimes the universe worked in mysterious ways. He secured the cash envelope inside his jacket and put on his helmet. The charity event was waiting, and now he had even better news to share with the hospital staff. A potential banking partner committed to understanding their family's unique needs. What had started as a simple withdrawal had become something much more significant. As Keanu pulled away from the curb, he could see Thomas and Reynolds still standing in the bank entrance, deep in conversation, already brainstorming ideas. The young teller was gesturing enthusiastically while the manager nodded thoughtfully. Their unexpected collaboration had only just begun. The warm California breeze flowed around him as he navigated through the city traffic toward the hospital. The day had taken an unexpected turn, but sometimes the best journeys weren't the ones you planned. And sometimes, Keanu thought with a smile, being denied at your own bank could lead to something wonderful. The children's hospital glowed with warm light against the darkening evening sky as Keanu parked his motorcycle in the visitor's lot. The journey from the bank had given him time to think, and his mind buzzed with possibilities for the banking partnership. What had begun as a frustrating security issue now felt like the start of something important. Keanu took off his helmet and ran a hand through his hair, glancing at his watch. He was just on time. The cash envelopes were secure in his inside jacket pocket, money that would help 30 families focus on their children's health instead of parking fees and cafeteria costs. As he walked toward the entrance, a small girl in a wheelchair was being pushed out by her mother. The girl's face lit up in recognition. "It's you. It's really you," she exclaimed, her voice carrying the unfiltered excitement only children can truly express. Keanu smiled warmly and knelt down to her level. "Hi there. What's your name?" "I'm Lily," she said, her eyes wide with wonder despite the visible tiredness in her small face. You're John Wick. But don't worry, I'm not supposed to watch those movies yet. My big brother lets me see little parts sometimes when Mom's not looking. Her mother looked momentarily horrified, then laughed. Lily, you weren't supposed to tell anyone that. Keanu chuckled. Your secret's safe with me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal token, a replica of the special coin from the John Wick movies that he sometimes carried for moments like this. Here, this is for you. But maybe keep it hidden from your mom, too. Lily giggled as she accepted the coin, examining it with wonder. This is the coolest thing ever. Wait until I show my brother. How are you feeling today, Lily? Keanu asked gently. Better. Dr. Chen says I might go home next week if my numbers stay good. She held up the coin. This is definitely helping already. That's great news, Keanu replied, his smile genuine. These moments, these real connections, were why he kept coming back to the hospital. After chatting a few minutes more and taking a quick photo with Lily and her mother, Keanu continued into the hospital. The security guard at the front desk recognized him immediately and waved him through with a respectful nod. The event was being held in the hospital's large multi-purpose room, which had been transformed with streamers, balloons, and cheerful decorations that belied the serious medical battles being fought throughout the building. As Keanu entered, he was greeted by Dr. Lisa Chen, the hospital's chief of pediatric oncology, and the driving force behind many of their family support initiatives. Keanu, you made it, Dr. Chen said warmly, giving him a quick hug. She was a small woman with intelligent eyes and an air of calm capability that instantly put people at ease. We were starting to wonder if you'd been held up. Had a small banking issue, actually, Keanu replied. But it turned into something interesting. I'll tell you about it later. Might be good news for the family support program. Dr. Chen raised an eyebrow, intrigued. I look forward to hearing about it. Everything's ready for your presentation whenever you are. No rush, though. Families are still arriving. Keanu nodded and surveyed the room. About 20 families had already gathered, some with children in wheelchairs or wearing protective masks, others with kids who showed no outward signs of illness, but carried the invisible weight of serious diagnoses. Hospital staff moved among them, offering refreshments and conversation. I invited a couple of people from my bank to attend, Keanu mentioned. They should be arriving soon. The bank manager and a teller named Thomas. More supporters are always welcome, Dr. Chen replied. Speaking of which, the Westbrook Foundation called today. They're increasing their donation by 50% after hearing about our new family services wing. That's fantastic, Keanu said. Every bit helps. A small commotion at the entrance caught their attention. Reynolds and Thomas had arrived, looking slightly out of place in their bank clothes amid the casual atmosphere of the event. Thomas had changed from his teller vest into a button-up shirt, and Reynolds had loosened his tie, but they still carried the unmistakable air of professionals straight from work. Keanu waved them over, noting how Thomas's eyes widened as he took in the room full of children battling serious illnesses. The young teller's expression shifted from nervousness to something deeper, a growing understanding of the reality these families faced. Glad you could make it, Keanu said as they approached. Dr. Chen, these are the people I mentioned. David Reynolds and Thomas Parker from First National Bank. Dr. Chen shook their hands warmly. Welcome to Children's Hospital. Thank you for coming. The honor is ours, Reynolds replied. Keanu mentioned a potential partnership that we're very interested in exploring. Did he now? Dr. Chen glanced at Keanu with pleasant surprise. That's the first I'm hearing of it, but I'm always open to new partnerships, especially with financial institutions. So many of our families struggle with the economic side of prolonged treatment. A hospital volunteer approached, whispering something to Dr. Chen, who nodded. Excuse me, gentlemen. Duty calls. Keanu, we're ready for your presentation in about 10 minutes, and I want to hear about this banking partnership afterward. She hurried off to handle whatever situation required her attention. Keanu turned to the bankers. Let me show you around a bit before we start. He guided them through the room, introducing them to several families he'd come to know over his years of involvement with the hospital. Each story was unique yet shared common threads: the shock of diagnosis, the scramble to manage work and hospital visits, the unexpected financial strains, and the unwavering commitment to do whatever it took to help their child heal. Thomas seemed particularly moved after meeting a young father who explained how he'd been sleeping in his car 3 nights a week to save on hotel costs while his son underwent chemotherapy. "We live about 2 hours away," the father explained quietly. "The treatment schedule means we're here more often than home. My wife stays in the family room when they have space, but there's only so many beds. Insurance covers the medical stuff, but not the living expenses. We're making it work, though." As they moved away, Thomas shook his head in disbelief. That man shouldn't have to sleep in his car while his kid fights cancer. "No, he shouldn't," Keanu agreed. "That's exactly the kind of situation we're hoping to address." Reynolds, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. "I had no idea the need was this extensive. My nephew's family struggled, but they live locally. I never considered those traveling for treatment." "Every family here has a different story," Keanu explained. "But the financial stress is almost universal. Even wealthy families feel it eventually if treatment goes on long enough." A hospital staff member approached, indicating it was time for Keanu's presentation. He nodded and turned to Reynolds and Thomas. "Find seats wherever you're comfortable. After I speak, I'll distribute the envelopes privately to families. Then maybe we can talk more about next steps." They agreed and found seats near the back of the room as Keanu made his way to the small podium at the front. He never used notes for these talks. They came straight from the heart. As the room quieted, Keanu surveyed the faces before him. Children with hope and fear in equal measure. Parents trying to be strong. Medical staff who fought alongside them every day. And now, unexpectedly, 2 bankers who might help create something lasting. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Keanu began, his voice gentle but carrying clearly through the room. "For those I haven't met yet, my name is Keanu Reeves. I'm not a doctor or a financial expert. I'm just someone who believes that while you're fighting for your children's health, you shouldn't have to fight financial systems too." He paused, making eye contact with several families. "Tonight is about immediate help, funds to cover the everyday expenses that add up so quickly during treatment. But it's also about something bigger. It's about creating sustainable support systems." From the back of the room, Keanu could see Thomas and Reynolds listening intently, nodding as he spoke. "Earlier today, I experienced something unexpected at my bank. A security measure delayed a withdrawal, the very funds I brought for you tonight." He smiled. "At first it was frustrating, but it led to a conversation about how financial institutions might better serve families like yours. And I'm pleased to say that representatives from that bank are here tonight, already thinking about solutions." Heads turned toward the back where the 2 bankers sat. Reynolds straightened his posture slightly under the sudden attention. What began as a simple banking error might become a dedicated program for families facing medical crises. That's how change happens sometimes, through unexpected moments that open our eyes to possibilities we hadn't considered. As Keanu continued speaking, sharing stories of resilience he'd witnessed in that very hospital, he could see the growing conviction in the bankers' expressions. What had started as a professional courtesy, attending an event at Keanu's invitation, was transforming into personal commitment as the human reality of these families' struggles became impossible to ignore. Sometimes, Keanu thought, the universe created obstacles for a reason. His denied withdrawal had led him here, to this moment of potential transformation, where the rigid systems of banking might bend to accommodate the urgent human needs before them. And as he concluded his speech to warm applause, he knew that the partnership taking shape would reach far beyond the 30 envelopes in his jacket pocket. It would create ripples that might eventually change how financial institutions everywhere responded to families in their most vulnerable moments. After his speech, Keanu spent the next hour personally handing out envelopes to the 30 families, taking time to speak with each one. He listened to their stories, offered words of encouragement, and promised that more help was coming. The gratitude in their eyes reinforced his determination to transform the banking mishap into something meaningful and lasting. As the event wound down, Keanu found Thomas standing by the refreshment table, deep in conversation with a teenage boy wearing a baseball cap that couldn't quite hide his lack of hair, a telltale sign of chemotherapy. "So, you really work at a bank?" the teen was asking. "That seems kind of boring, no offense," Thomas laughed. "Sometimes it is, but tonight's making me see it differently." He noticed Keanu approaching and straightened up. "Mr. Reeves, this is Alex. He was just telling me about his fundraising idea." Alex's eyes widened at Keanu's presence, but to his credit, he recovered quickly. Yeah, I want to create a gaming marathon where people donate based on how long players stay awake. My friends and I could easily go 24 hours, especially for a good cause. That sounds brilliant, Keanu replied, genuinely impressed. Connecting something you love with helping others, that's the sweet spot. That's what I was telling him, Thomas said. And it got me thinking about how the bank could help. We could create a secure donation platform specifically for patient-led fundraisers, with no processing fees. Keanu nodded approvingly. Thomas had clearly been inspired by the evening's events, his banker's mind already searching for solutions. What do you think, Alex? Keanu asked. The teen considered it. That would be awesome. My mom tried to set up donations online for another kid here, but the website took like 9% of everything. That's money that should have gone to the family. Exactly, Thomas agreed. We could absorb those costs as part of our community commitment. Reynolds joined them, having overheard the conversation. Thomas has been full of ideas tonight, he said to Keanu. I've been taking notes. Dr. Chen appeared, looking tired but satisfied with the event's success. Keanu, I wanted to thank you again. The families really appreciated your time, not just the financial help. She turned to Reynolds and Thomas. And thank you both for coming. I heard you're interested in some kind of partnership. Reynolds nodded. Very interested. In fact, I've been authorized to commit up to $50,000 immediately to kickstart a pilot program. If you're willing to help us design something that truly meets your family's needs. Dr. Chen's eyebrows shot up in surprise. That's extremely generous and unexpected. The bank actually has a substantial community investment budget that's been underutilized, Reynolds explained. After what I've seen tonight, I can't think of a better use for those funds. Keanu watched the exchange with quiet satisfaction. The evening was exceeding his hopes. We should discuss this more formally, Dr. Chen said. Would you be available for a meeting next week? I'd like to include our family services coordinator and financial counselor. Absolutely, Reynolds replied. I'll bring our community investment team as well. He glanced at Thomas. And I'd like Thomas to lead from our side with my support. The young teller looked stunned. Me, really? You've shown remarkable insight tonight, Reynolds said. And your personal connection to the cause gives you perspective the rest of us lack. Alex, who had been listening to the adults talk, suddenly spoke up. Can I come too? I mean, if you're making programs for kids like us, shouldn't you hear what we think? Dr. Chen smiled. That's an excellent point, Alex. Patient input is essential. Would that be all right? She asked Reynolds. More than all right, it's necessary, the banker agreed. We need to hear directly from the people we're trying to help. As they exchanged contact information and set a tentative meeting date, Keanu stepped back slightly, content to watch the partnership forming. What had begun as his idea was already taking on a life of its own, exactly as it should. The hospital's event coordinator approached, gently reminding everyone that they needed to clear the room soon. As the small group made their way toward the exit, Lily, the girl Keanu had met earlier, wheeled herself over with her mother following close behind. Mr. Reeves, she called. I wanted to say goodbye and thank you for the coin. It's my new lucky charm. Keanu knelt down beside her wheelchair. I'm glad you like it, Lily. How are you feeling? Tired, but good, she replied. Mom says we can go home soon if everything stays on track. That's wonderful news, Keanu said warmly. Lily's mother stepped forward. I also wanted to thank you for the envelope. It might seem small to some, but her voice caught slightly. It means we can stay at the hotel across the street for the next week instead of commuting 2 hours each way. That's 7 more hours I can spend with Lily instead of on the road. Thomas and Reynolds exchanged a glance, the real-world impact of their nascent project becoming even clearer. Actually, Reynolds said, stepping forward and introducing himself, we're working on a program that might help with exactly that kind of situation in the future. Would you be willing to share more about the financial challenges you've faced during Lily's treatment? It would help us design better solutions. As Lily's mother began describing their journey, insurance complications, travel costs, reduced work hours, mounting credit card debt, Thomas pulled out his phone and began taking notes, his face set in determined concentration. Keanu watched the scene with quiet pride. The banking error that had nearly derailed his plans for the evening had instead catalyzed something far more valuable. Outside the hospital, The night air was cool and refreshing after the emotional intensity of the event. The group stood in the parking lot, reluctant to end the evening and the momentum they'd built. "I never expected any of this when I woke up this morning," Reynolds admitted. "I was supposed to have a day of budget meetings and loan approvals. I was just trying to withdraw cash," Keanu added with a smile. "Funny how things work out." Thomas, who had been quiet for a few minutes, looked up from his phone. "I've been texting with my cousin, the one who had cancer as a teen. He's excited about what we're doing and offered to join our planning team to share his family's experience." "That would be invaluable," Dr. Chen said. "The more perspectives we include, the better the program will be." As they said their goodbyes, Reynolds pulled Keanu aside. "I want to thank you properly. When you first mentioned a partnership at the bank, I thought you were just being polite about the withdrawal issue. I never imagined it would lead to this." "Sometimes the best ideas come from unexpected places," Keanu replied. "I'm just glad you were open to listening." "Well, I've already emailed our executive team," Reynolds said. "They've approved fast-tracking this initiative and doubling our initial commitment to $100,000. By this time next month, we should have concrete programs in place." Keanu raised his eyebrows, impressed by the speed and scale of the bank's response. "That's fantastic. The least we can do after nearly turning away a customer who was trying to help sick children," Reynolds said with a self-deprecating smile. "Though I have to admit it might be the best mistake we've ever made." As everyone departed, Dr. Chen back to her patients, the bankers to their homes with minds full of new ideas, and Keanu to his motorcycle, there was a shared sense that something significant had begun. A simple banking error, a denied withdrawal, had sparked a chain reaction that would ultimately help hundreds of families. Keanu started his motorcycle, thinking about the day's journey. He'd gone to the bank for a simple transaction and encountered an unexpected obstacle, but that obstacle had revealed an opportunity none of them had seen before. Sometimes life worked that way. The detours led to destinations more meaningful than the original path. As he pulled out of the hospital parking lot, he caught a glimpse of Thomas still sitting in his car, typing furiously on his phone, likely already drafting proposals for their new project. The young teller who had once nervously denied a transaction was now channeling that same careful attention to detail into creating solutions that would help families like Lily's focus on healing, rather than financial stress. The night air rushed past as Keanu accelerated onto the main road. Tomorrow would bring planning meetings, program development, and the hard work of turning inspiration into action. But tonight, riding through the quiet streets with the knowledge that something good was taking root, Keanu felt content. Sometimes being turned away opened doors you never knew existed. And sometimes the thing you were seeking, in this case a way to help families in crisis, found a path far greater than the one you had originally planned. What had begun as a frustrating denial at his own bank had blossomed into something that would help far more than 30 families. It would create a model that could spread to other banks, other hospitals, other communities. All because a teller named Thomas had followed protocol, a manager named Reynolds had seen potential instead of a problem, and everyone involved had been willing to transform an awkward situation into an opportunity for genuine change. 6 months had passed since the evening at Children's Hospital when a denied bank withdrawal sparked an unexpected partnership. The warm California summer had given way to autumn, bringing cooler breezes and golden light that streamed through the windows of First National Bank's community room. Keanu sat at the head of a large table, looking around at the faces gathered for the program's 6-month review meeting. What had begun as a simple idea had grown beyond anything he'd imagined that day at the bank. The frustration of being denied a withdrawal from his own account seemed like a distant memory now, replaced by pride in what that moment had ultimately created. "Before we begin," Keanu said, "I want to thank everyone for your incredible work these past 6 months. What you've accomplished is remarkable." Around the table sat the key players who had transformed an awkward banking error into a lifeline for hundreds of families. Dr. Chen, now co-chair of the program alongside Thomas, nodded appreciatively. Reynolds, who had championed the initiative within the banking industry, smiled from his seat. Alex, the teenage patient who had suggested the gaming marathon fundraiser, sat proudly in his hospital volunteer t-shirt, his hair now growing back in tufts. Most striking was Thomas's transformation. No longer the nervous teller who had denied Keanu's withdrawal, He had blossomed into a confident program director. His desk at the bank now displayed photos of children who had benefited from the program, reminders of why the work mattered. "Let's start with the numbers," Thomas suggested, opening his laptop. "In 6 months, we've provided financial assistance to 342 families with children receiving treatment at Children's Hospital. That's more than 10 times the number Keanu was originally able to help with cash envelopes." He displayed a graph showing the program's growth month by month. "The Emergency Housing Fund has been our most utilized service," he continued. "We've provided 1,993 nights of hotel accommodations for families traveling for treatment, saving them approximately $284,000 in out-of-pocket expenses." Dr. Chen jumped in. "The impact goes beyond the financial numbers. Our nurses report that parents are more present during critical care periods now that they're not commuting long distances or sleeping in cars. The children's recovery metrics have improved as a result." Alex raised his hand. "The gaming marathon raised $86,000, way more than we expected. We're planning another one in December, and 5 other hospitals across the country have asked if they can join in." Keanu leaned back in his chair, taking it all in. What had begun as his project had taken on a life of its own, with people stepping up in ways he couldn't have predicted. "The most exciting news," Reynolds said, opening a folder, "is that our program has been noticed nationally. 3 other major banks have reached out to learn our model, and the American Banking Association has asked us to present at their annual conference." Thomas nodded. "We've created a toolkit to help other banks replicate what we're doing. The goal is to have similar programs in at least 20 major cities by this time next year." "That's incredible," Keanu said sincerely. "Has there been any word from the governor's office about the state-level initiative?" Reynolds smiled. "Better than that. They've included our program in the state budget proposal as a public-private partnership model. If approved, state funds will match private banking contributions for children's hospital family support across California." A knock at the door interrupted their discussion. A bank employee peeked in. "Sorry to interrupt, but there are some people here for the meeting. They said they were invited." The door opened wider, revealing a group of families whose lives had been touched by the program. Among them was Lily, the girl Keanu had met 6 months ago. She was walking now, no longer in a wheelchair, though she still moved carefully. Beside her stood her mother, holding a large handmade poster signed by dozens of children. "We heard you were having an important meeting," Lily said, her voice stronger than when Keanu had first met her. "We wanted to come say thank you in person." As the families filed in, taking seats around the periphery of the room, Lily approached Keanu with a small box. "Remember this?" she asked, opening it to reveal the John Wick coin he had given her. "You said it was lucky, and I think you were right. I finished my last treatment 2 weeks ago." "That's wonderful news," Keanu said, genuinely moved. "But I think you made your own luck with your courage." "Maybe," she agreed with a smile that showed wisdom beyond her years. "But the program you started made a huge difference for us. Mom didn't have to quit her job because of the flexible banking hours and the emergency funds when our car broke down on the way to treatment." Lily's mother stepped forward. "Before this program, I was making impossible choices: pay the mortgage or stay near my daughter during treatment. The financial counseling and emergency assistance meant I didn't have to choose between being a good mother and keeping a roof over our heads." Other families shared similar stories. A father explained how the program's transportation assistance had allowed his son to access a clinical trial that was only available at Children's Hospital. A teenage girl described how the special medical leave financing had enabled her mother to take unpaid time off work during her bone marrow transplant without risking foreclosure on their home. Thomas listened intently to each story, occasionally making notes. The nervous bank teller had become a dedicated advocate, using his financial expertise to dismantle barriers that families never should have faced in the first place. "We've compiled these stories," a father said, handing Thomas a thumb drive. "We thought they might help when you present to other banks. Numbers matter, but the real stories behind them matter more." As the formal meeting transitioned into a more casual gathering, with families mingling with bank executives and hospital staff, Keanu found himself standing beside Reynolds near the windows. "Did you ever imagine that denying my withdrawal would lead to all this?" Keanu asked. Reynolds shook his head. "Never." When Thomas flagged your account that day, I thought it was just another security protocol to handle. Now look at what it's become. They watched as Thomas knelt to talk with a young boy showing him a superhero action figure. He's been offered executive positions at 3 larger banks, Reynolds said quietly. Turned them all down. Said his work here matters more than a bigger title or salary. Not surprising, Keanu replied. Once you connect with the real impact of your work, it's hard to walk away from it. Across the room, Alex was demonstrating his fundraising website to Dr. Chen, his animated gestures revealing his passion for the project. What had begun as a simple gaming marathon had evolved into a nationwide platform connecting young patients with supporters around the world. A bank executive Keanu hadn't met before approached them. Mr. Reeves, I wanted to thank you personally. The board has reviewed the program's results and we've decided to make it permanent with dedicated annual funding. The Reeves Family Support Initiative will be part of our core community commitment going forward. That's very generous, Keanu responded, though I hope you'll consider renaming it. This became something far bigger than me the moment Thomas and Reynolds saw its potential. Perhaps the Children's Hospital Family Support Initiative would be more fitting, the executive nodded. Of course, though everyone internally will probably still call it the program Keanu started when we messed up his withdrawal. They shared a laugh as Lily approached with her mother. We have to go, she said, but I wanted to give you this. She handed Keanu a small envelope. It's an invitation to my no more chemo party next weekend. I'd really like it if you could come. I wouldn't miss it, Keanu replied sincerely, tucking the invitation into his jacket, the same jacket that had once carried cash envelopes for 30 families and now represented hope for thousands. As the gathering began to wind down, Thomas called for everyone's attention. I just received an email that I have to share, he announced, his voice trembling slightly with excitement. The state legislature has unanimously approved the public-private partnership model. Starting next month, our program will be implemented in every children's hospital across California, with matching state funds. Applause filled the room, along with a few tears of joy. What had begun in this very bank with a denied withdrawal had grown into a statewide initiative that would help thousands of families focus on their children's health without financial ruin. Later, as Keanu prepared to leave, he paused at the bank's entrance, remembering that day 6 months ago, when he'd stood in the same spot, frustrated by a security flag on his account. He couldn't have known then that the obstacle would lead to something so meaningful. Thomas joined him at the door. You know, I still feel bad sometimes about denying your withdrawal that day, Keanu smiled. I'm glad you did. Sometimes the wrong doors have to close before the right ones can open. Outside, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the street, just as it had on that first day. But now, those shadows fell across a changed landscape. Not just the physical world, but the lives of hundreds of families and the people who had come together to help them. As Keanu walked to his EMI style